Hey there, friends. Tired of managing symptoms and struggling for answers? This holistic podcast guides you beyond one-size-fits-all advice to uncover root cause health solutions. I'm Holly Jean Mullen, your functional nutritional therapist host. Drawing from over a decade of clinical and personal experience, I'm here to help you overcome chronic issues like thyroid problems, autoimmune conditions, hormone imbalances, inflammation, weight loss resistance, the list goes on. This isn't generic advice. It's a comprehensive, personalized plan covering nutrition, mindset, and environment. Tune in for practical education, expert guests, real stories, and coaching to help identify what's keeping you stuck. It's time to understand your unique needs and tap into your God-given ability to heal by honoring nature's wisdom. Your transformation starts here. Let's go. Hello, friends. It's Holly, and full disclosure right out the gate, I am currently running on approximately 0 hours of sleep. I got no winks last night. I am 5 days post China trip, and jet lag has officially evolved into full-blown insomnia. We're talking 26 hours awake and counting. At this point, I'm basically a coffee-scented ghost with a to-do list. And napping is not on that list because I am so afraid that if I take a nap, I am not going to be able to fall asleep tonight. I have never had jet lag before because I've never traveled so far internationally before. So this is all new to me. So in the spirit of practicing what I preach and not forcing fresh content when my brain has clearly filed for sabbatical, I have made the wise decision to recycle one of my favorite past episodes with a sleep coach because it just feels appropriate right now. Now, you'll hear in the episode, I am a self-proclaimed excellent sleeper, and this current state of delirious zombie is as foreign to me as the Chinese language. And this episode originally aired back in October of 2021 on my previous podcast, Low Carb Conversations, with my awesome, amazing dear friend and co-host, Leah Williamson. And yes, the year is vintage, but the content is still 2025 fire. We are talking to Devin Burke. He is the founder of Sleep Science Academy and the creator of a full spectrum sleep approach called dynamic sleep recalibrating. It's not just about sleep hygiene or melatonin. He goes deeper, looking at the nervous system, the mind, the body, and yes, even the spirit. And that's why I love this conversation so much. Devin has helped thousands of people break free from the exhausting cycle of insomnia using this holistic framework. And he holds a degree in health promotion and like a pile of certifications. His real PhD is in results. That's so cheesy, I know. But he has been in the trenches with real people. He has the transformations to show for it. So he has studied what it takes to rest and heal and restore. And he's drawing from psychology, physiology, and spiritual traditions from all over the world. And he was also named one of the top 25 health coaches in America. And once you hear him, you'll understand why. In this episode, we dive into what's really going on when your sleep goes off the rails. You know what? Sorry, I just have to say, it probably doesn't help with my sleep that we have a puppy. And I don't know if you can hear him right now, but he's like at my feet chewing on stuff and he's making all sorts of little like snorting and grunting noises in his little like happy puppy chews, but not helping with my sleep problems at night is having a puppy. But anyways, back to Devin. We also talk about sleep debt and the pressure that we put on ourselves to sleep well and how that backfires. Hello, I am living proof of this right now. We're talking about circadian rhythms and sleep biology, and Devin breaks down what he calls his signature 3 Ps of sleep and how to use them to reset your rest without the stress. You know, I love all the things that take the stress out, right? Like I said, this episode originally aired in 2021, but Devin is still active. He's still very much relevant, and I have all his current links in the show notes for you. So if I mention it in this episode, it's still in the show notes now, even though this is a replay. So let's get into it.
Thank you for having me on the show and allowing me to share. I'll give you the quick version of a long story, but over the last decade, I've studied a lot of different mind body, let's call them technologies, really selfishly to figure out how I could live my best life, how I could wake up with energy, get things done, be productive, be happy, be joyful. And through that journey, I was helping a lot of high performing entrepreneurs that were suffering from burnout. Not so much a sleep expert, didn't know anything about sleep, took it for granted myself. This person had sleep issues really bad. And he said, "Hey, I know you've studied a lot of things. Can you help with this issue?" I said, "I've studied a lot of things, but I don't know anything about sleep. I think it's a waste of time. Like, you're having issues." So anyway, he inspired me to look into, first and foremost, insomnia and the solutions available. And when I saw what was available, I was like, wow, this is first and foremost, a lot of what was available, sleeping pills, highly addictive, dangerous side effects. And then on the other side of that is CBTI. I was like, okay, that's one tool that can be effective. But it really inspired me to learn more about the science of sleep. And then I love challenges. So I was like, well, let me dive into this. The more I dove into it, the more interested I got in it. And then I said, well, let me see if I can help this person. And I was able to help him using some of the techniques and the tools that I learned. I said, well, I can help one person, I can help millions of people, and in a way that is better than what's currently available. So that kind of zooms me up to what I do now at Sleep Science Academy.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. So did you have, like, just as a side, did you have any sleep issues yourself, or not sleep issues, but now your sleep is enhanced way more? Yeah.
So absolutely. I don't have like a sob story where I had insomnia and it was terrible and I was on this quest to figure it out for myself. I'm a really curious person. I like to solve problems. I'm a natural, entrepreneur. That's what we do. And I love health. And so the more I studied sleep specifically, and the more I realized that it literally is the foundation of health and what it does and all the amazing things that happen during the night and how that impacts our performance, our energy. And then I said, okay, there's something here. Let me start to measure my own sleep. And once I started to measure my own sleep, I realized that I wasn't that as good of a sleeper as I thought I was. And so I started to optimize and pull certain levers and test certain things. And that enabled me to get better quality of sleep. And I saw how that quality of sleep ended up translating to my day, into my mental performance, into my mood. And really, it's little hinges swing big doors when we're talking about sleep quality. And so that really had an impact on me. And, it's an ongoing process, and I'm always trying new supplements and trying different, strategies and be happy to share some of those. But it's like you can always improve something, but we spend a third of our lives in bed. Why not improve that 1/3 to make the other 2/3 that much better? That's my mentality, at least.
Definitely. I couldn't agree with you more there. Holly, were you going to say something?
was when you were kind of describing, I was thinking like, you don't know if you're sleeping good or if you're sleeping bad until you experience like really great sleep. And I was thinking like, let's say you're someone who sleeps in a budget motel every time you travel, right? And you think, oh, this is great. And then one time you stay in a luxury hotel and you're like, I am never going back. And so I imagine like if you just think your mediocre sleep is fine and then you have great sleep one day, you're like, oh, so does it kind of turn you into a diva, like when it comes to your sleeping hacks and stuff, when you're like, I need my cold room, I need my wet blanket? So I can't wait till we get into all that stuff. I want to know all about it.
Holly, I'm going to have to steal your analogy. That is such a great sort of tee up to this whole conversation. And to answer your question, yes. And so the thing is with how we feel, it's so subjective when we get used to feeling a certain way and we think that that's like normal or good. And then when we experience something else, like we go from the budget hotel to the $10,000 massaging mattress that cools and heats up, and you realize, oh my God, what was I thinking when I was sleeping on this budget hotel? Yeah, it's the same thing with your sleep. And, so as far as for me, needing all of this, the perfect environment and having, all the special things, I let go of all those things. I can sleep on a rock and I'd be okay with it, because one of the downsides to thinking that you need a cold, dark room and a $10,000 mattress and all these things, it actually creates pressure and anxiety around sleep, which ends up doing the opposite of getting good quality sleep, because you have all these expectations and things need to be perfect. And then that creates more unnecessary pressure and stress, which actually does the opposite for your sleep. It doesn't allow you to get deeper delta or REM sleep. So I'm relaxed about it, but trust me, I love sleeping in an optimized bedroom. In my house, for sure, it's optimized. But elsewhere, it's like I could sleep on a couch. I'd be fine.
Yeah. Us mums always talking about sleep vacation. So like, instead of just going away for like a weekend of drinking and partying or whatever it is, it's like, let's just book into a hotel and go to sleep.
I love that. Yeah. So I know you're kidding. Well, maybe you're kidding, but one of the things that I'm working on currently is creating a sleep retreat in Utah where people can come and be in this environment that's optimized for sleep, that has like no EMFs, that has this perfect mattress, that has, the lights, and literally you could come and hang out for a week or a weekend. And that's what you do, is you get amazing sleep and you're in an amazing, beautiful place. So that's in the works
I'll be there.
I know when the world opens up again, sign me up.
All right, cool.
Holly and I will go for a sleep vacation.
There retreat. You
go. All right. Well, this is awesome already. I knew this conversation was going to be great. But before we move on to some of our articles, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your book, The Sleep Advantage. And I hear you've just recorded a new audiobook. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So the sleep advantage really came out of all the research that I was doing over the last 4 years to improve my own health. I like to put people in different buckets when I talk about sleep. There's the insomniacs. Then there's like this big chunk of the world that just doesn't think sleep's important and doesn't do anything to improve their sleep. And then there's, on the other side of that, there's like the biohackers and the people that want to optimize, and they're doing all the things. So I really wrote the book to take people from the big bucket of people that don't realize the power and the importance of sleep, and start to shift them more towards that other optimization category, where they can realize how, by doing these simple practices, and the book's very tangible, it's very actionable. There is some science, but it's more so, if you read some of the other very popular sleep books out there, which are fantastic, like Matt Walker's book, it's not so actionable. It's more like science. It's more like he's giving you facts and figures. The reason I wrote The Sleep Advantage was to give people a plan and say, hey, this is what to do. This is why to do it. This is how to do it. And so I released that last year, became a bestseller because I think people needed a simple guide with tangible steps, not just to know that when you don't sleep, how detrimental that is to your health, but what to do to actually improve your sleep. And so that's the book. And it's also an audio version, which I recorded in my voice, which was a lot of fun for me. And I've been getting great feedback. So I appreciate you sharing that with your listeners.
Yeah, great. We'll link that up into the show notes so everyone can take a look at that. And then you mentioned before too, your Sleep Academy. Was that the right name of that?
Yeah, Sleep Science Academy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sleep Science. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so that Sleep Science Academy, we help people mostly in the United States, but we do have some international clients get and stay asleep using a holistic approach based in science. So over a period of 8 weeks, we help people successfully reset their sleep systems, end the bed dread, and allow them to get natural sleep without the need for Ambien or Lunesta or all these drugs, alcohol, or even sleep hygiene for that matter. We teach people, we give people the mindset tools, the support, and leverage technology to give people what they need to restore their natural ability to sleep. So that's what we do at Sleep Science Academy.
And now moving on to the articles, Holly's got the first one, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about boosting that sleep quality and get into some more of your hacks here.
Yeah, I like that bed dread. Okay, this first article, it is from Real Simple magazine, and this is from their latest edition in August. And the title of it is How Well You Sleep Matters More Than How Much You Sleep. Here's how to boost your sleep quality. This article, a quick summary, discusses the recommended number of hours to sleep per night, whether quality or quantity is most important, suggesting that both are important and why. And it walks us through kind of understanding the sleep stages, why we need both REM sleep as well as NREM sleep, and suggestions for sleep improvement. Before we get into this article, Devin, I'm wondering, is 8 still the magic number of hours recommended of sleep per night? And where did that come from?
Yeah. So to answer the question, no. Everyone's sleep needs are unique. So some people can do fantastic with 7 hours. Some people need a little bit more than 8 hours. And it also depends on where you are in your life, your lifestyle. Are you an athlete? Are you 70-year-old male or female? Are you a 16-year-old child or a teenager that's an athlete, or maybe not, maybe a bookworm? So depending on your lifestyle, how old you are, how much stress your job and sort of stress you put yourself through, all dictates how much sleep you're going to need on top of your unique chronotype, your unique chronobiology. So we all have this, night owl and morning lark is kind of the more common term that people are familiar with, but that's our sleep genetics. And sometimes we're prone to need, to want to go to sleep a little bit later and need less sleep. And some people are just, they do better with more sleep. So there's a lot of factors. 8 hours, I think, definitely is a myth. But it's, between 7 to 8 hours generally for most healthy adults is what's necessary. And so that, depending on all the things I just said, will dictate, is it more towards the 7 or is it more towards the 8? And that can change throughout life as well.
Okay. So a lot of our listeners are from the paleo, keto, primal circle. So when you say that we have unique chronotypes and sleep cycles, and some people are night owls, some people are early birds, but I think in this circle, we kind of have this idea that we're meant to go to sleep with the sun and rise with the sun. So do you think that is accurate throughout human evolution, or do you think that we are still kind of wired that way and have just adjusted to modern living, or maybe we've never really been modern or wired that way?
No, that's a great question. I love that question, and it's a hard one to answer. I definitely think that because of modern technology, our sleep cycles have changed and are changing just because of the way the world's operating with artificial light and with working, with Netflix and with all these things that kind of pull our us away from sleep. But there are a lot of research now. Dr. Michael Bruce, he's doing a lot of this chronotype research. He's written a great book called The Power of When, which talks about, yes, there are certain genes in our circadian clock. Essentially, every cell has a circadian clock. And so then there's the master clock, which is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's a mouthful that kind of syncs all the other clocks. And so depending on your genetics, you might be more of an evening person or a morning person. And if you go back into like the Paleolithic times, and we're talking about like the hunters and the gatherers, like there was a need for that. There is like the need for the people that could stay up late and protect the tribe. And then maybe other people that were more of not the hunters, they were more of like the daytime workers, if you will. So I think like there's like an evolutionary adaptation for survival in these different chronotypes, which that's just my opinion. It makes sense to me, but being synced with natural rhythms in general, whatever they are for you, is so important. Like, we are so out of sync with nature. It's unbelievable how far we've come from what's natural with our sleep, with the sunlight, with, fresh air, with, being able to be connected to the earth, the, electromagnetic frequency of the earth. There's so much dysregulation now with all these interferences. That's one of the reasons why we have this massive sleep epidemic beyond on top of all the stresses, the emotional and mental stresses that people experience just because of the modern world that we live in.
Yeah. Fascinating. I'd really like to dive into that more. I'm gonna have to look into it. Okay. So quality and quantity of sleep are both important, but are they equally important?
Yeah. So that is a tough question to answer because they are both important. So I don't really have an answer for that because I would say, some people, it's a tricky one because some people can say, well, I want to sleep less and make that and try to optimize the sleep that I am sleeping and make that better quality. But usually what happens is your body needs a certain amount of sleep regardless. So based off of your chronotype and lifestyle and all the things that we already went through. So you can, I think, toy with that a little bit to a point. So like if somebody is a 7-hour sleeper and they're trying to get 5 hours and make like 2 or 3 of those hours quality sleep, it's going to be really hard to do. And eventually I think that even if they were able to achieve that, there would be a toll on their health because they're not getting enough sleep. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, and all of it makes sense is that there's not really a black or white or a yes or no answer. There is a lot of gray area because we have to take into account bioindividuality.
Absolutely. That's a great word. I love that. It's so true. So I think focusing on both is important. Like stage one is figuring out, well, how much sleep is enough for me? And then looking at, well, how much of that sleep is actually quality sleep is phase 2, where you're looking at, well, okay, I'm getting 7 hours. I'm a 7-hour person, but when that presupposes that you're measuring it because we can't manage what we don't measure and we can't master what we don't manage. And so if we're measuring our sleep, then we can see, okay, I'm getting 7 hours, but wow, 20% of my total sleep time is not deep sleep. It's actually that I'm out of KPI there. So what can I do? All right. I cannot maybe eat as late in the night because we get most of our deep sleep in the first quarter of the night. And then you can start to kind of pull these levers and see about maximizing the quality of sleep within the quantity.
Okay. You mentioned a couple things that I want to go back to. One was you mentioned how sleep would affect our health. So I want to know about what are some things that can go wrong with our health. And then just so I don't forget, well, darn it, I think I already forgot. All right, let's just go with that one.
Well, one of the things is actually memory loss. And so,
oh gosh, it's obvious. I haven't been sleeping this week.
You teed that up really nice for me. So there's a lot of science around what a lack of sleep and quality sleep does for our cognitive performance and our memory. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist or read an article to know that when you don't get good sleep, your brain is just a little bit slower. And we can see this specifically in auto accidents. So, Matt Walker talks about this in his book about daytime savings. When we lose that hour of sleep, there's the most car accidents and heart attacks the day before. And the reason is because sleep is that important to our mental function, our ability to concentrate, to stay focused, to stay present, as well as our reaction time, as well as just our general hormone health. So that's one of the things that goes array when we're not getting enough quality sleep or enough sleep, is that our hormones get out of sync. So ghrelin and leptin are the hunger signaling hormone and the full signaling hormone. Those get out of sync. So you crave fat and sugar like crazy. You overeat, and your cortisol's higher. So you're storing that as fat on your body. So from a physical standpoint to a mental standpoint to a longevity standpoint, the telomeres shorten. There's so many areas that are impacted when we don't get consistent good sleep.
When I was young and used to go out and party and close the bars down, and the next day I would feel like crap, I always thought it was because, I was out drinking all night. Of course I didn't feel good. Now I'm not out drinking all night, but if I'm not getting sleep the next day, I feel hungover. Like my chest hurts, my head hurts, my body aches. I can't think. I want to eat all the food. So
yeah, and emotionally you're more irritable, you're on edge, you make poor decisions. It's not good. I talk to people literally all over the country every day that a lack of sleep is destroying their lives, either their financial health, their physical health, their relational health, because sleep does impact all these areas, because it's a trickle effect. And when you're not sleeping, you're more stressed. And so sleep and stress are bidirectionally linked, meaning the less sleep you get, the more stressed you are, the less sleep you get. So it becomes this vicious cycle. I call it the zombie cycle, or the insomniac paradox, which then keeps the people, on this Ferris wheel of not feeling good until they're able to get off of it.
All right. I'm going to pass it to Leah so I don't hog the whole show. Let's see if we can make up for sleep this weekend.
I'm just enjoying listening to all of this. But I do have an article here, which is called why it's a good why it's a good idea to sleep on the weekend. Here, I'm fatigued as well because I haven't had enough sleep. So this is just about a study that's being published that found that catching up on sleep on the weekend is not such a bad idea if you really need it. They're saying it's contrary to Matthew Walker's beliefs, which is, he says that sleep is not like banking and you can't accumulate debt and pay it back later. And they're saying that new research contradicts this. They show that you may be able to recoup your woefully lost sleep with an occasional lie-in, and it showed that people who slept less than 5 hours a night or more than 8 hours a night had a higher mortality rate than those that slept more. Overall, it was the amount of sleep a person got that seemed to make the difference. So I guess my question is, I burnt the candle a little bit last night. I had an event, stayed out, couldn't go to sleep when I came home because I was all hyped up. It was such a good, heartfelt, exciting event. So I wanted to sit up and share some of that love for a little bit. And then when I finally went to bed, my alarm's going off because I'm recording super early here and I've got events on all this weekend. So can I have a nap sometime today and be ready to go tonight?
Yeah, based off of what you just shared, I would highly recommend that you do take a nap, and you will be okay tonight. So, so depending on who, like the question is, is sleep debt real? And what I'm getting is two questions: is sleep debt real? Is trying to catch up on sleep bad or harmful? And so, but depending on the demographic I'm speaking to, right? So if you said, I am an insomniac, I have chronic insomnia, I would say, okay, taking naps, not the best idea because it's going to decrease your sleep drive and sleep pressure. But if you're, an entrepreneur, you're burning the candle through both ends and you have the space and the time to take a nap, do it. It's going to be way better than a cup of coffee as long as you don't get into deep sleep. So like a 20-minute snooze,
yeah,
would be like the best thing you possibly could do. And I always tell people, try it on. As long as you don't have insomnia, like naps are amazing. Naps and catching up on sleep can be amazing. Now, if you have insomnia and if you're a chronic insomniac, napping and trying to catch up on sleep on the weekends, not so amazing, not going to be good because it's going to dysregulate that sleep pressure system. And then it becomes a real problem. So I would say, depending on who I'm speaking to is going to dictate, what piece of information would be most useful for that person.
Yeah, that makes sense. I might just borrow you to tell my children to let me have a little nap later on as well, because they don't normally let me nap. But no, it definitely makes sense. So my husband's always had sleep problems and he takes a nap every single day. And I said to him, if you took that nap out and tried to kind of reset your cycle again, you'd be fine. You wouldn't rely on that nap at lunchtime every single day. Is that am I down the right track telling him that?
I think you are. Yeah, because when we nap, what can happen if we're consistently napping every day, it can disturb the sleep pressure system. So there's two systems that control sleep: circadian rhythm and sleep pressure. And the sleep pressure is the buildup of adenosine. And so when we're napping, we're essentially releasing some of that pressure, and then some of that adenosine is getting cleared out, and it's not building up enough to create the sleepiness so that then we can sleep throughout the entire night. So it can be, I would say, if you're listening to this, husband, stop taking naps. Yes.
Good. Yeah. Can give him some more jobs now instead of napping. No. Just kidding. But seriously though, like I don't normally take a nap during the day because I know that it would be harder for me to get to sleep at nighttime. And then you get in that cycle. So it's like I napped, now I go to bed later, now I'm tired again. So I take another nap. So it kind of goes into that cycle. So for me, I prefer just to keep going, have one day of less sleep and then just sleep a little bit longer into the next night if that's possible. So
depending on what time you nap too is going to be a big factor there. If you're napping too late into the day, then not a good idea. If you're napping like earlier on in the day, like after 1 p.m., like when you naturally have that body temperature dip and you sort of get tired after lunch, that's not just because of the food you ate. That's also because of the natural body temperature starts to dip, and our body temperature needs to drop between 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit in order to induce sleep. And we get this natural dip. That's why and in most countries around the world, take a siesta. That's why. It's like biologically our body's saying, wind down, chill out, take a rest. That's a great time to take a nap. 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, not so good to take a nap if you plan on being in bed by 10 o'clock.
Holly loves a good nap.
I am the queen of naps. And this is right in my nap time. I like to nap right around 2 to 2:30. And my cat knows when it's nap time. He lets me know, Mama, it's time for our nap.
Nap queen. I like that. You should have a shirt that says Nap Queen.
Should.
That's a cool title.
I used to say, I'm not excellent at many things, but I am excellent at sleeping.
That's a great thing to be excellent at. I think a lot of people listening to this are probably very jealous.
What about
this week? This week doesn't count.
What about if I decide not to take a nap, but at that normal time when my energy is kind of like feeling like it needs a rest, at that dip you were just talking about, if I just sat and meditated, or if I just sat and rested, would that be equivalent? I'm a yoga teacher too, and there's this saying is like when you do restorative yoga, it's like equivalent to having a night's sleep. Can you make up sleep through other methods like that?
Yeah, so there is some interesting research about people that are able to drop into different brainwave states using meditation techniques. Most people don't have the skills to do that. The meditation skills, like that's like monks that have been, meditate all day and have been doing it for like decades. But yeah, so you can put your brain in a certain sort of restorative state that kind of mimics sleep while you're still conscious. And there are certain techniques in meditation I know that allow people to actually need less sleep because of that process. So, depending on, I think, the type of meditation and how skilled you are at it and all that, I think will dictate whether or not that would be possible for you.
And I agree. And most people probably can't get into that state. What about just having that parasympathetic time, like, tapping into that part of the nervous system and just resting, being without distraction? Can that drop us into, is it more the relaxation that's happening there rather than, being equivalent to sleep kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely beneficial either way, but I don't think it gets better than sleep.
Yeah. Nothing
like,
can beat that sleep.
No, like it's just another level when you're sleeping, your body's like pretty much shut down. Even if you're just in the parasympathetic, whether it's you're just like meditating or relaxing, or doing something low stim, it's good. But if we're talking good, better, best, I would say sleep best. That would be like good.
Yeah, I think that's good to know, because I think that if you're prioritizing anything, just take sleep as the number one. And then, yeah, anytime you can just relax and rest is still going to be beneficial for you though.
100%.
Love that. All right. I'm going to pass back to Holly because she's got some really great insomnia cures that we want to know whether they're true or not.
I want to go into these. First, I have a completely random and personal question. So when I get really tired, like if it's late and I need to go to sleep, I sometimes feel sick. Like I get nauseous. I feel like I'm going to barf. Is that normal? And why does that happen?
Yeah, I don't think that's normal. Why it happens could be a number of reasons. It could be a blood sugar thing. It could be a blood sugar thing. So I'm not sure if you've ever used a continuous blood glucose monitor or
Yeah. I did the NutriSense for a few months. I never noticed anything. Okay. I thought it would maybe be something common. You don't have to answer that.
But hey, if I've never heard of that, but if I do ever hear of anyone else having that experience, I'll let you know if I.
It's only like when I'm exhausted, and that's when I know. Okay, you need to go to bed because you're in the barf phase.
Yeah, you know what that is. So when you are exhausted, yeah, absolutely. It's almost like I think it does have to do with blood sugar. Like if you're totally spent, like let's say you're a extrovert and you go to this big live event and you're talking to people and there's music and there's all these lights and everything's going on and you're like all hyped up and excited about things. And that's like over a really long period of time. And then you're you like can push past that point of like, now your body's telling you, hey, you need to slow down. I'm going to make you feel sick. The body's incredible, it has its own intelligence. It'll do things to make us slow down. It's constantly speaking to us. That could be like your body just saying, giving you the signal, like you're at your threshold, like you need to chill out. You need to shut it down. That could be it. Again, I have no idea. I'm just giving. That's
what I chalk it up to, is that's my body going, okay, you're done. And it's time to go home. So
yeah, makes sense to me.
Okay. All right. Let's get back to business here. All right. This last article, this is a fun one. It is called My Deep Sleep Quest. I tried 11 popular insomnia cures. Do any of them work? This is the story of a journalist. She's trying to figure out how to sleep the best, trying all sorts of different tricks. With sleep being such a common problem, I think a lot of people do this, and she tries everything from pillow sprays, mouth sprays, roll-ons, creams, breathing techniques, CBD drops, the weighted blankets, melatonin, counting backwards, including some weird ones I've never heard of that we'll talk about. But I don't know because I am an excellent sleeper, as I mentioned, but I know that people who don't sleep well, they are willing to try anything to go to sleep or to overcome their insomnia. So where do you suggest people start when trying to find the magic key to a night's rest? And let's go over some of these things that like might actually work.
Yeah. So one of the big things that just everyone listening to this needs to know is sleep's a natural biological process that happens when you allow it to happen or when you remove the barriers to it happening. So oftentimes people get caught in this, what I call this paradox of trying to force or control sleep. And sleep's not something you can force or control. And trying to do so, you're actually going to create more anxiety and pressure around it, which is going to lead to more of what you don't want. And so again, you cannot force sleep. You can't will sleep. It does doing that. And these are, when you use the sprays and the pillows and this whole article of all these things, this poor journalist has tried. She is trying to control something that you cannot control. And in doing so, this is why she's stuck. And in the bottom of the article, she actually says the most insightful thing, which is, let me see. She says, the best medicine I fear may be acceptance. the way she phrases this, the best medicine is acceptance. The way she phrases it, I think she could have, it's more about like, sounds like she's talking about resignation, not acceptance, but acceptance is actually a key to getting out of this paradox, is actually not having expectations around what will happen during the night. And so what happens is people have these expectations, oh, I'm going to do this and that's going to make me sleep. And when it doesn't work, it reinforces a false belief that they're broken and they're not going to be able to sleep. And then they try something else and it reinforces that belief. And now all of a sudden, now they think that they're going to have to live with insomnia the rest of their life, and they don't. And that's every insomniac's baseline fear is I'm going to live the rest of my life not being able to sleep. And it's not true. And that thought itself is creating anxiety, which is creating less sleep.
Okay, that reminded me of what I forgot earlier when you were talking about things that you can do to actually measure whether or not you are getting a good night's sleep. So maybe we can circle back to that and then what your recommendations are. I mean, I know you just said remove the expectations, but are there other things that people can do to help remove the barriers to getting a good night's sleep?
Yeah, one of the first things is change the belief that you need anything in order to sleep. There are people, millions of people that can sleep on trains, planes, and in the car, in the worst environments, and they have no problem sleeping. But somehow we come up with a belief that we need the perfect environment. We need this, essential oil. We need a hot shower. We need to, pray and do this mantra. We need acupuncture. We need this. We need that. All that can be helpful to increase sleep quality, but believing that you need any of that in order to sleep is a false belief that keeps people stuck.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I'm all about like having the sleep routine or doing things at night to relax and get your body ready for sleep. But I never really understood that being dependent upon like certain circumstances or situations and having everything just right. But I'm also not a type A personality, so.
Yeah, if you can release your expectations and just accept whatever the night brings, whether it's a great night of sleep or it's a challenging night of sleep, your body's going to be in the best position to actually sleep. And that's what people don't realize. They try to force it or control it, or they resist. Like there's a saying we say a lot in Sleep Science Academy, what you resist persists. And so people resist the, uncomfortable feelings that sometimes come along with not sleeping. And that creates more uncomfortable feelings, which creates more of what they don't want. So there's a lot to be said about just releasing expectations around sleep and releasing pressure and really challenging the stories about what you have. You see, this is where I teach something, it's called the 3P patterns. There's perfectionism, problem solver, and pedestal patterns. Most of the people in Sleep Science Academy that we serve have all three of these patterns. Perfectionism is like this woman that tried all these different things. She's trying to perfect her sleep. She's trying to solve it. She's also in problem solver pattern. She's trying to solve it like it's a problem. Sleep is not a problem. Sleep is a result. It's not a problem. And so the pedestal pattern is people put it on a pedestal. This is the tricky one because, like people like Matt Walker and all this science, it's like, yes, when we get great sleep, we have better energy. We're more focused. Our health is better. But by putting it on a pedestal, it creates this expectation that if I don't sleep, then like my body's falling apart, my memory's falling apart. And then that creates what? Anxiety and stress. Anxiety and stress creates less sleep. So identifying the 3P patterns and really working through those patterns can transform somebody that's tried everything and still can't sleep. Usually that's what they're missing. They're missing how to change their relationship to sleep.
That was gold right there. Thank you for coming to Devin's TED Talk. Although you've done a TED Talk. Was that what it was on? That was so good. All right. I want to know about something. Lettuce water. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say something there. I loved what you just said, Devin. And when my children have trouble sleeping, I'm like the tough love master. They'll be like, Mom, I can't sleep. I don't want to go to sleep. I'm like, that's rubbish. Just go in there and lay down and stop fussing about it. My daughter will be like, oh, can I have the oil burn? I'm like, no, just go in there, close your eyes, you'll get to sleep. And within 5 minutes, they're asleep. So I love that. I'm doing the right thing.
You are. Keep it up, Leah.
My son does the same thing. He'll be up going, I can't sleep. I can't do this. And it's like, well, 1, let's start by getting in bed. And 2, close your eyes. Let's see what happens. We'll start there.
Yeah, you don't want to train your kids to feel like they need anything in order to sleep, because they don't.
I love it. Okay, let's circle back. So there is a trend on TikTok going around to help people sleep. That is lettuce water. Have you heard of this? What is it? Is it up there with celery juice? I don't even know.
Honestly, I haven't heard of that. And I know nothing about lettuce water, but I can assure you that if that is the holy grail to a great night's sleep, I think a lot more people would be drinking lettuce water. I think that's probably just a TikTok sort of joke, or one of these viral things on the internet that somehow, I don't know how people actually believe and start to do. That one is new to me. That is definitely out there.
Sounds disgusting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't recommend lettuce water. No, that's not in the recommendation list here.
And aren't they taking like the oil from it or something weird? But lettuce doesn't even lettuce seed oil. That's what it is, I think.
Oh yeah.
It's like who would even think of that?
Yeah,
it's not a thing, guys.
I really, listen, I've never tried it, so I can't really knock it. But I haven't heard of that. That literally was the first time I'm not on TikTok either, or a lot of social media. But yeah, that's definitely out there. The lettuce water. I've not heard that one's that's a shocker right there.
Well, if any of our listeners are struggling with sleep and they want to give that one a try, let us know how it goes.
Let us know.
Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. I've heard of banana tea. Banana tea. That one actually.
Did that one recently? Okay.
Yeah, boiling the banana peels, because it releases natural melatonin, and banana tea. I mean, tastes much better than, I think, warm lettuce water. I'm just throwing that out there. But that would be an interesting experiment for listeners to try. Lettuce water versus banana tea, and track your sleep. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, let's make that challenge go viral. Okay, since you just mentioned it, I wanted to wrap up, but since you did just say melatonin, I know that is a common go-to for people, and there are both sides of that camp saying, yes, do it as long as it helps, whatever helps you sleep, go ahead and do it. And then there's the other camp that says, don't do it. It's a hormone. You're going to mess with things, create more problems. Is that one of those yes and or maybe answers also?
It is. I tend to lean more towards the not using melatonin, because it's a hormone, and it's actually regulated in the EU. I don't like to mess around with hormones. I just think that, your body, unless again, there are some circumstances, and there are some interesting studies about high dose melatonin for health. But I don't know. I just get a little bit concerned when people start popping hormone pills to try to figure out their sleep. And the supplement industry is just not regulated. It's, there was a study specifically done on melatonin that showed even across the same brand, there was varying amounts of melatonin within the same company's supplement. So it's kind of like one of those things. It's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid.
There are other avenues to explore first.
For sure.
Okay, Leah, do you have any final questions for Devin?
No, I've just really enjoyed this chat so much. I'm going to go and take a nap next.
I don't get my nap today. If you guys are taking my nap right now, I'll forgive you. Okay, you said you're not on social media, but I know you are on Instagram. So is that the best place for people to find you, or is there somewhere else to direct people to learn more about you and find your sleep academy and all that stuff?
Yeah. So when I say I'm not on social media, I just don't spend a lot of time on it, but I do post content specifically on YouTube. I have a lot of great videos on my YouTube channel for talking about how to sleep, these paradoxes within sleep, some of the techniques and tools that we use at Sleep Science Academy. Put out a lot of good stuff there on YouTube. Instagram, Devin Burke Wellness, LinkedIn, Devin Burke Wellness, everywhere else. But if you're looking for strategies and actually content wise, definitely YouTube is where I put out most of the stuff.
Okay, fantastic. We'll be sure to link all those sites up in the show notes so our guests can our listeners can easily find you. Thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a really great conversation. I know I got a lot of value out of it. I think our listeners will get a lot of value out of it. So thank you so much.
All right, that's it for today's show. Thanks for hanging out with me, especially if you're listening at 3 a.m., wide-eyed like me this week. Big thanks to Devin for sharing such timeless wisdom. You can find all of his updated links in the show notes. And hey, if this episode helped you feel seen, less stressed, or just reminded you that you are not broken when it comes to sleep, just share it with a fellow tired soul. Until next time, may your bed be cozy and your brain be quiet. And I pray you get some sleep. I pray I get some sleep. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Real Health Transformations. I appreciate you joining me. If you found value in what we covered today, I'd be grateful if you could leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. It really helps spread the word and just helps me get the show out to more people and lets more people find us. And if you'd like to submit a question for me to answer on a coaching episode or to apply to be a live guest on a coaching episode, check out the show notes on how to contact me for that. The show is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. As always, please consult your trusted doctor or medical professional before making health and lifestyle changes. I'll catch you next time on Real Health Transformations.